All
All right,
right.
man.
We're back. It's
Ooh.
been a couple weeks off here, Dan. We had the old holiday break and I got to see your face. You came back into the Chicago area.
Yep.
How was your trip?
It was good. It was a long trip. Got a little upset we didn't get to see snow. But always good seeing friends and family. Had a really good dinner out at Phase 3 in Elmhurst. Our buddy Gavin works out over there, so that was a really good meal
Yep.
to have. Good beer, good food. Check it out if you're ever out in Elmhurst and you want to have a good meal and some good beer. But now I'm back here in San Diego. It was kind of nice to touch back down here in San Diego and, feel the warmth and sunshine and just be able to kind of go out and walk around. So, um, happy to be drinking San Diego beer again as well. So the beer I have is a staple here in San Diego. It's a beer that I've had on before. The brewery is called Society Brewing Company. They've been around since 2012. They did something in COVID that was like very popular is that they kind of ceased all operation of like tap rooms and purely just they had their own cannery. So they went right into canning. So they just were able to kind of like be staying afloat and serving their beer all throughout. So to reach people. So they're doing a lot of cool things. They just opened up another tap room here in Old Town. And they kind of made it look like a Wild Wild West theme. But a little bit about the beer I'm drinking, and then some recent wins they just had this past year at the Brewers Cup here in California. But the beer I'm drinking is their Surefire Bullseye West Coast IPA. You got a 3.9 on Untapped. Their description of it is pretty funny, so I'm going to read it. Our latest quarterly IPA, Surefire Bullseye, has been spotted roaming around the West Coast, dazzling palates from the ranches of Ramona to the lounge chairs of La Jolla. A buffoonery of tropical fruit notes saunter in the pint glass like rhinestones glimmering in the desert sun. So there it is. It's really good. It's a 7.1% as well. The two awards that they won, they had two silvers this last year at the Brewers Cup of California. They got it for their Belgian ale. It's called the Harlot, and they had an Imperial double IPA. It's called the Roustabout that got silver as well. And I'm pretty sure one of their beers, it's probably like 2015 or something, was named like Pilsner of the Year in GQ magazine or something. The Pupil, if you look it up, the Pupil is a really popular beer by them. But what about you, man? What are you drinking? What are you up to?
Year of the Year in GQ magazine.
I'll
That's
have to
the first
fact
we've
check
heard
that,
of
but yeah,
that.
I'll look it
Yeah.
up.
So I've got Art History Brewing. They're based out of Geneva, Illinois. Tom Rao is the head brewer there and the owner. He began home brewing in the early 1980s after trying some traditional styles of beer at the Old Amsterdam Brew Pub in Toronto, Ontario. Fast forward to 2018, he travels to Munich to study at Siebel World Brewing Academy and graduates with a diploma in international brewing technology. Graduates, he brings his European experiences and his diploma back to Geneva, Illinois to open Art History Brewing in 2020. Sure, that first year was tough for art history. But today, Art History Brewing unites art and history. They create an environment that features the work of local artists, variety of craft beer styles. They have a traditional German beer garden there, so the German influence is strong with Art History Brewing. The beer I have here is called Bauhaus. It's a German style Pilsner. It's 5.2%, and it's brewed in the style of a Northern German Pilsner. It's characterized by a dry and crisp finish. So you'll see it's very, very light color. It's got a balanced malt character, premium, bitterness to it as well. So, because they have these classic German hops, Tettnang, I believe is how you pronounce that, in
Sounds
here.
good.
So it's a really, really good beer. Highly recommend checking out Art History Brewing.
Man, I love that German like pill. I feel like pilsners are making a big comeback in the beer scene. A lot of breweries are starting to go back to like lighter, more approachable beers for the masses, as opposed to some of the things and trends we saw a couple of years ago with like the smoothie beers or like the really, really alcoholic like double IPAs that
Oh,
are pretty tough to drink. But
yeah, I think now, yeah, nobody's really going in and asking for these marshmallow, double dry hopped,
right,
they want something that's simpler. And the awesome thing about Pilsners now is everybody's focusing more on these, and so they all have their own different flavor. I feel like a lot of times you go into a brewery and you're like, oh, just give me the Pilsner. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like a palate cleanser when you're trying a bunch of different beers. But now I feel like they all have their own little style. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that as well. All right, Dan. Today there was some big news with our Chicago Bears. We got to talk about it. It's got to be the first thing we talk about
Yeah,
here.
of
I
course.
think there was, you know, arguments on Twitter all day long. Did they make the right call here? And we haven't even gotten to them having the number one pick and deciding what they're going to do with the face of the franchise. We're just talking about the coaching staff, right?
Yep.
So they fire Luke Getzey and most of the offensive coaching staff. I think they retained the tight ends coach, um,
Offensive line coach, I think they
offensive
want
line
to
coach.
retain. Yeah.
Yeah, but like all the other assistants, the QB coach, I mean, they're gone. Matt Eberflus stays though.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hear your thoughts right off the bat when you heard that.
Uh, I had to like refresh it. Not what I wanted to hear. I definitely wanted a pivot. I wanted something, after 3 seasons of losing, albeit, yeah, it was a rebuild, but you look around the league and other organizations and coaches get it done regardless of the talent. I mean, the Packers have the youngest roster in the league. They're going to the playoffs. So, I don't want to hear like that the roster was gutted to tank and rebuild. I mean, they're still professional football players. You have a coaching staff where two of your picked coworkers were fired for workplace mishap. Nobody really knows what happens there, but it's two people that Eberflus hired get fired. They lose out again this year, no playoffs, and we're retaining this guy, like first time head coach. Like it's just I understand the perspective of, he helped turn around the culture. He raised the floor of this thing and just like turned around the culture. And I agree with that. And I'm like glad he did that, that the players are playing hard. They like coming here and being a part of this team. Like I'm all cool with that, but I still wanted him gone because like most organizations, once that floor has been raised and then the window starts opening up, like we have the first draft pick again this year. We got a lot of
Hmm.
money to spend. Now is the time to like, okay, the dust has settled. We got out of it. We got a lot of good things going our way right now. We have a lot of good things going our way. Why not, swing for the fences and get the head coach that makes a splash that tells the NFL, like, okay, now it's time for us to compete. Look what the Chicago Bears are doing. You're seeing like good coaches all around the league getting relieved of their duties. The one that stands out to me is Vrabel in Tennessee. I thought he was a really good coach. He just, the talent hasn't been there really with Tennessee. Pete Carroll's stepping down, I think, and moving into an admin position. But overall, just frustrated with this move. I wanted the big splash, like the Craig Council for the Cubs, or when we got Joe Madden. Yeah, Renteria was good. We were raising the floor up. Players were happy there. They liked him. He's a player's coach. The talent was arriving. But we saw that, and now it's time to compete. So now let's put our big boy pants up and start playing with the other franchises around the league that really really go for it. But this is typical Bear stuff, so it's frustrating.
Yeah, that's my first reaction too. And the first thing that came to my mind was Rick Renteria and thinking about him. And he coached the Cubs for 1 year, but we all remember his
Yeah,
name, right? Because he was the
yeah,
guy right before Joe Madden, the guy that the players liked. He was a players coach, but when they got Joe Madden, it was go time, right?
right.
From then on, we start to work on the roster right after that, and the team turns it around. 2 years in, and they win it all. So I mean, it's you need a culture shift. I think again, I get the other argument though. I get the argument to keeping him, right? He's only
Yeah.
coached 2 years as a head coach. It was 3-14 the first year. I mean, the sky's the limit after that. You're not gonna
You got to
coach
go
much
up.
worse than that.
Yeah.
So 7-10, right, this year. And I think I've been saying it a lot, and maybe not so much on this podcast, but how easy this schedule has been for the Bears this year.
Hmm.
And I'm already looking at the teams that they're playing next year, and I see maybe 5 or 6 wins, based on the roster that we have right now, that the Bears have right now, and the rosters of the teams that they're playing with. Obviously, there's a lot's going to happen in the offseason and things going to shake out. But to me, the schedule's bound to get harder next year. I don't see, a major improvement under this guy. He
Yeah.
really just doesn't seem like that kind of head coach.
I mean, you
And
said
so,
Renteria for me. I was like, this is kind of Lovey Smith all over again. And like, it's not a bad thing, right? Like Lovey Smith, those teams were fun to cheer for. The defense was really, really good. But again, I feel like we're going to have this carousel in our offense where we're going to be rotating offensive coordinators. And it just begs the question, like, what's happening at the quarterback position, right? It's the most important position in this league. We've had Justin Fields. He's underperformed, I think, for what most people have liked, but you could, hand pick your stat that you want to point out that it's not his fault for losing these games. But overall, I think just the eye test tells you he's got talent, he's got skill, but he's just missing the it factor. And if you got the number one pick, I think we've said it before. I would take a quarterback. But there's a lot of arguments here. It's crazy. It's like every day you're arguing with your friends, you're refreshing Twitter of like what the Bears should do, what position we're in here, what is Poles gonna do. I mean, I just
I
wanted,
wouldn't
yeah,
I
it's
wouldn't liken
upsetting,
this I
right? It's
wouldn't
up.
liken this to Lovey Smith at all because Smith
No,
was with the Bears for, let's see, he's 2004 to 2012, and the
well, that's
last
what that's
five
what I'm
seasons that
saying.
he had with the Bears, like they had one losing record, you know, but they found themselves even after 10-6 season in 2012 firing him after that because of the mediocrity component, right? Like where is this team headed though? Are they not headed towards mediocrity, I think, with
That's what
this
I'm
coach
saying.
and the players that we got. And now you have this
Like Flus could
OC
be here for
spot.
10 years and we will have a solid D. We'll be maybe playoffs here and there. I mean, they went to the Super Bowl one time with Lovey, but like it's not the swing for the fence. It's staying pat. Maybe we're gonna progress here and have a 5 to 10 year run. I don't think 10 years, but like maybe 5 years where, we're a bad season is 500, and that's kind of where Bears fans are comfortable. I feel like that's where we're at. That's what we're used to. We haven't been to the playoffs in what,
Yeah.
13 years? Is that right? Something like that.
We haven't beat the Packers in the last 5 years. Flus hasn't shown us anything that shows that we're going to beat them anytime soon. And that's the youngest team in the NFL. The
Yeah.
Packers are. The Bears are the
Yeah.
third youngest. So you got to turn stuff around quick because the Packers sure as hell did. They got
Right.
rid of Rodgers and now they're the youngest team in the NFL and they're beating you, pretty handily every time they play you. And so I think Courtney Cronin does an excellent job. I'm just going to read a quick, thoughts that she had on Twitter on this, especially with the OC getting fired and you're retaining a head coach. And this is just something that the Bears do. They don't ever clean house. They keep a
Right.
couple guys.
Right.
They run this thing like a business, right? He's improved a little bit, he's showing, the signs of being a good leader. And it's like that's not a football decision. That's if you're, running a business and this person is, in a director level position and you clean out a few people in the department, but you keep him at the top. That's a business decision. This needs to be a football decision. They need to focus on the football team and what's on the field. I don't care that the players are saying that they like him.
Right.
They're going to tell you that about other coaches too. Who
Right.
cares? Who cares that the players like him? They're going to like anybody, especially if they're winning games. That's what matters the most. I love hearing what DJ Moore has to say, but just, you know, everyone needs to put that to the side because he's going to love winning more than he's going to love any of these
Exactly.
other things. But
Exactly.
but Courtney says here, and I'll give you a couple instances, right? You got the OC spot with Gatsby being fired. What OC wants to come into this, especially if they have several places that they could go to, because there's obviously several offensive coordinator jobs and head coaching jobs available. Why would they come into a job with a head coach that's entering lame duck status again, which the Bears continue to do this? If they lose, they win 6 games next year. If they lose the majority of the season, that whole staff's going to be gone, right?
Yeah.
They have to can the whole staff. And even if this is a new offensive coordinator, they're not going to retain the offensive coordinator and look for a head coach and make the head coach take on this offensive coordinator who might not fit with their scheme. Like this person's coming into a unique situation where they have to believe in Eberflus and the roster, and if not the roster, then potentially this first overall pick. Are they coming in and dictating whether they want Caleb Williams or another quarterback or Justin Fields? And then if you're talking about Justin Fields, they stick with him in 2024. That's his third offense in four
Yep.
years.
Yeah.
He said himself firsthand, it takes a full year to learn the verbiage of an offense. So it's going to be a whole nother year of learning if you keep Fields. And then after that, you got his 5th year option. And guess what? You got to make a decision on if you're going to pay him or not, right? You
Yeah.
can pick up the option now if you want, but what if he sucks next year? And he likely probably will because there's going to be a learning curve with whoever they bring in, right? So, you can say it all you want. You see people like Chase Daniel online talking about how good he is, and I think he can be good, but he needs a lot of hand holding, I think, more than the average quarterback does. Um,
I also think after what 3 years of just getting the crap kicked out of you and you know being thrown to the ground, no flags when you're sliding in, like he's been beat down and he hasn't been successful. And if you're doing your job for 3 years and you're just getting the shit kicked out of you and you're not winning, the mental toll it takes on like your psyche to crawl out of that hole is going to take like a ton of work. It's going to take the whole entire team revamping. Like it's easier to start another project, right? And that's what I think with this number one pick. But that's what also it's so frustrating, right? If they draft a quarterback with the number one pick, don't you think you would want your head coach to be aligned step by step with that quarterback that you were picking?
yeah.
And what the Bears are doing, staying pat with Eberflus, they're already negating opportunities for the best offensive minds to become their head coach because those offensive coordinators are going to get head coaching jobs, right? So the best offensive minds this offseason are going to get head coaching jobs. So we're already starting like our search, like, number 5 down the line of offensive minds. And it might all hit, right? We might get this offensive coordinator, we might draft a quarterback, and it might all work. Or maybe, it's so next year and they fire Flus and they promote that offensive coordinator. And that's what they're selling to these offensive coordinators. You'll come here, right? If you show signs of like progression with the quarterback and the team, is improving on the offensive side, but we're still not winning. Maybe we can promote you from within because that's what the Bears don't
They're
want to
gonna look
spend
like they're
money.
gonna look like jack wagons again if they do that. But if they win 6 games next year, and you can't tell me the offense is gonna look that great.
Yeah.
So what offensive coordinator is gonna believe that idea was bugging me today too, that they're gonna sell an offensive coordinator on coming in and potentially being the head coach at some point. It's like if you're good, if you guys are winning, guess what? Eberflus isn't leaving. They're not gonna fire him and promote you if you're winning. If you're losing, why the hell would they promote you? If the
Yeah.
team's not winning and the offense isn't clicking, like get out of here. There's no way that that's going to work. So what you're going to get is a retread, another offensive coordinator, one of these guys that's been somewhere else. And I've seen they've called Shane Waldron already from
Yeah.
Seattle because
He's got a
Seattle
good
blew up their
pedigree.
coaching. So that's a good guy to reach out to. But this idea or this thing that Eberflus is saying, there's the phone's ringing off the hook, that there's so many people interested in this offensive coordinator job. I don't believe that at all. And by not getting rid of the head coach, you're not giving the new head coach freedom over
Yeah.
who they're picking and choosing. And I don't believe that Eberflus is picking this coordinator either. I think he'll be in that room, but I don't think it's going to be his decision ultimately because look at who he's hired already. They're gone. They're not in the building anymore. So, and then the other idea
It's just
of that maybe
idiotic.
the Bears will get it right. Maybe they will. What are the odds of that? Is it 50-50? No. Two Bears offensive coordinators have lasted more than 2 seasons in the last 25 years. Ron Turner was the most recent one from 2005 to 2009. So we haven't had an offensive coordinator in the last 15 years that's lasted more than 2 seasons, dude. That's insane. Their next hire is going to be the 13th offensive coordinator in 26 seasons. That's unbelievable. So, Luke Getsy got fired. He could have. The play calling was terrible. I think everybody could see that. But is he taking the fall for all of the losses
Yes.
last year?
Yes, of course he is. I
So
mean, we've
they're
we've
they're
done this
100%
song
putting
and
the blame on this
dance.
guy. Exactly. And they've
Like,
done that. That's what I'm saying. 13th offensive coordinator in 26 seasons. We didn't score enough points. Let's just blame it all on that guy. Bring somebody else in,
and I
and we'll
hate the
just rerun
gatekeepers
this
that are
thing.
like telling us like, "Hey, just relax, right? Like this is fine. Like everything's like Eberflus is a good coach. Like Fields is like just relax." What has this franchise showed you that you are just going to have blind faith in them? I think most Bears fans right now have a favorable look at polls. I think this move is starting to raise, a couple red flags of is he fully in charge of decision making? I think he's got
He
two
said it
years
was his
left on his
call.
yeah, of course he did. He also said he didn't reach out to hardball, which is like negligence if he didn't call one of the best like possible coaches that has ties to your franchise, just won a national champ. Like if you didn't call him or his agent just to like see what's up, you're not doing your job, right? So he's lying there. Um, it's just it's just frustrating because I mean, in our lifetime, we haven't seen a Super Bowl. We haven't been there, won a Super Bowl since 1985. People are acting like we're on an upward trajectory and everyone needs to chill out. Um, but you hired Kevin Warren and like you thought things were going to be different because now there's somebody whose like sole responsibility is to oversee all decisions of the football program, right? Because the McCaskies do run it as a business. It's their whole entire lineage. It's how they make a living. It is a business to them. Thought Kevin Warren would start treating it like an actual football program, and we're seeing more of the same. I don't know, man. It's
I
super
think he's more
frustrating.
hands off
It's
than
super,
people
super
think.
frustrating. It's super frustrating. The draft is the only thing yeah, I'll get excited with a good OC, but I wanted a new coach overall.
Hmm.
Maybe Eberflus is a good coach, right? Maybe he starts becoming a little more hands off. He allows Poles to have a little more say in his coaching hires because he's like, hey, the two guys you did got fired. Let me have here's a list of 5 guys I like. Maybe you like 2 of them, and then from there we'll collaborate because that was their big thing, and then we'll decide on who's going to be our OC. They're revamping the whole offensive side of the ball, but it's just typical Bears. It's typical Bears. It's been that way our whole entire life. We'll have a good defensive team moving forward. The carousel will happen on the offensive side once again. We'll see what happens at quarterback. I mean, we've never had the one pick. We had it last year. We traded it. We have it again 2 years in a row. These are things that have never happened in our lifetime with our franchise. So maybe that is like a sign of optimism for good things to come. And maybe we're just so used to being beat down by this organization that we can't see, you know, that there is, a bright horizon that we're running towards. Like maybe that is happening. Maybe we're going to be in the playoffs next year, Evan. Maybe Eberflus is going to win Coach of the Year next year, right? We're going to turn this offense around. We're going to retain Justin Fields. We're going to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. and the offense is just going to take off. Maybe that's going to happen.
Man, the Marvin Harrison Jr. thing, it's starting to bug me that everyone kind of pitches Marvin Harrison Jr. as like this idea that they came up with. And it's like, listen, guys, everybody knows this is the best wide receiver in college football. He's going to come out, he's going to be a top 5 pick. All right. Maybe the Bears take him. They could use another wide receiver. But I mean, look, and again, they got rid of Getsy. Justin Fields supporting 2,000-yard receivers. I just don't see it. I don't see it. They barely threw to the middle of the field last year. Again,
Yeah.
you can blame that on Getsy if you want. You can blame the pass attempts on Getsy. Surely in that Packers game, they should have thrown the ball more. But does Justin Fields need to throw it 30, 40 times a game? Is he going to do that when he's at his best? I doubt it. I don't think so. That's not the type of quarterback he is. Do you want to number one wide receivers out there? Of course you do, right? But is that the best way to use that first overall pick? No, you should trade back. You should get more assets. And then I think by the time they do that, they're gonna fall out of, where Marvin Harrison is gonna be. I just don't want everybody to get disappointed when we don't get Marvin Harrison, is all I'm
It's going to
saying.
be absolutely bonkers if 2 years in a row we trade back the number 1 overall pick and pass on a quarterback. That
And I love how the media asked him specifically today about CJ Stroud. They said, does that, that kind of tells us a little bit about your, ability to identify a good quarterback. What do
right.
you think about that? And he's like, listen, I'm just going to do what I did last year, basically. But I like that
Yeah,
they
he
pressed
basically
him a
said
little bit on
something
that
like
you missed on that one, right?
he said like the quarterback has to absolutely wow me in order for me to draft him. And then they were like, so why didn't CJ Stroud wow you? Like where's your deficiency? And he kind of just did, the roundabout answer of like, I don't know, like whatever.
Yeah, we're looking at the whole player, the whole
Right.
picture or whatever,
Right.
like,
I
maybe
think it's got to
insinuating that
be.
he's
You
not
said
that
trade
great of a
down. I
guy.
think it's. I don't want to talk about this any longer because I feel like you just talk in circles about. I mean, it's what we do all day long. We just talk in circles
Yeah.
about the Bears, and there's no winning any argument about it. It's you can't control what's going to happen. But you want to trade down. I've all year have been wanting a change
If
at
we're going to keep
quarterback.
Fields, you got to trade down. I don't want to take a wide receiver at number one. I don't
No, I'm
think,
taking Caleb Williams. Like
I would take Caleb Williams too. That'd
100%.
be
That is
what I
what
would do.
needs to happen. I mean, I like that doesn't mean I don't like Justin Fields. I think he is a really good person. He's really fun to root for. He just, to me, he doesn't have that passing capability. like you were saying, if he's got two number ones of just sitting in the pocket and 2.5 seconds going through progression and just letting it rip. He seems to me while watching games, he takes a little longer to process what's in front of them, and then relies on his unbelievable athleticism to make plays. Like he's definitely the most athletic quarterback in the NFL, but that doesn't mean he's the best quarterback, right? So I think there needs to be a change there, and I would draft the prospect that everyone says is the
Yeah.
best quarterback on the draft. And everyone's like, well, that never pans out. It's really hard to draft. Look at all the number one quarterbacks. But like, wouldn't it be nice just to be that in that category of one time like swinging for the fence with that number one quarterback? I don't know. They're like, oh, then you're
It's
the
worked out
Browns.
before.
But
I
it's
mean,
just
look,
like, come on.
the hit rate isn't perfect. Of course not. Nobody knows exactly what everyone's going to be. But yeah, I mean, Fields, a lot of those games he drops back and he gets sacked right away. Well, he's one of the slowest passers in the NFL to drop back. He has one of the slowest, if not the slowest, three-step drop.
Well, it's because his receivers
So,
aren't getting open, Evan. It's
yeah,
because of the scheme that Getsy's calling and the routes that are being run. Like, what excuse do you want to throw out there to make sure it's not his fault?
yeah, I know, right. You could throw all of them out there. Like I agree with you though. If they had the seventh or eighth pick, right? This number one, let's say this Panthers pick was the seventh or eighth pick, keep Fields for sure. And you're taking two top 10 players with those, right?
Oh,
But you have
definitely.
the number one pick.
That's the thing.
You could take
That's the thing.
in a draft class that everyone's saying, of course, they say it every year, I guess. But this one, especially, they've been talking about Caleb Williams for a little while. And you know, I think they need to swing for the fences too. But let's move on. Let's move
Yeah,
on to the
let's do
Cubs.
it.
All right. Speaking of swinging for the fences, we need
Shota.
them to start swinging for the fences. But I do like the one move that they have made, and that's Shota Imanaga. 4 years, 53 mil. It's kind of a complicated contract. I guess there's outs after 2 years, and it'd be up to 5 years too. But he's 30. Nickname. I love this nickname, the
Yep.
throwing philosopher. The lefty career record 64 and 50, 3.18 ERA last year, 148 innings, 2.80 ERA for the Yokohama Bay Stars. And he struck out 174 guys in 148 innings. So it shows he's got a lot of strikeout potential, but he also gave up a lot of homers. That's the knock on him. But it's awesome. Lefty, potential high end starter. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like the signing. Of course I do. The number one thing I think the Cubs needed to do in the offseason was get a pitcher, right? Like Stroman opted out. You had Steele kind of really showcase that he's one of the top pitchers in the league last year. So let's add to that rotation. And we get Shota. And I think it's just a good all around move, right? It adds to your roster. The talent. I think 30. You said he's 30. I think that's a really prime age for a pitcher. I think there's pitchers in the major leagues that are going late 30s into the early 40s still pitching at a major league level. So I think that's good. I don't care about his age. I just like the acquisition of a Japanese talent as well. We got Seiya, we got Shota. I think it just shows that we're a globally scouted like team. I think we went and signed one of the younger stars out of I think the Dominican, who's a cousin or something of Starlin Castro that we like
Right.
are like being talked about signing. So just adding overall talent is good, but I want more. You know, we have Cubs convention this weekend, so I think a lot of fans are wanting more splashes. News all of a sudden is starting to leak out that Cubs have made offers to Shota, they made offers to Bellinger, they have offers to Reese Hoskins, they have offers out to Matt Chapman. So it's kind of like I think Jed threw the offers out and everybody's waiting. Everyone's like kind of just waiting and seeing, and who's gonna budge if they're just gonna be like, all right, I got no other offers, I'm gonna accept it. I wonder how that whole process works. But overall, I love the signing. I love adding talent. I love adding talent that most of the league wanted to go after as well. So it shows that he was a sought after prospect. But I want more. I want more. I want to go into this weekend with a lot of signings. Got a couple more days to do it, and then go over to spring training and see a revamped Cubs roster.
Yeah, I think Jed would obviously love to get stuff done before the Cubs con, but just as you and I know that that's coming up, so do the players' agents. So I think I'm not hopeful that it's going to happen by the weekend, but I do really hope that they're in on Chapman, Bellinger, and Hoskins, like you mentioned specifically. So I
That would
really
be
want them to
insane
get
if they
those
got
guys.
all of those players. You got Hoskins at first, Chapman at third, you got Dansby and Nico
Corner,
up the
yeah,
middle. Like that's one of the best
loaded.
infields in the major leagues.
Yeah, 100%. We'd love to have Bellinger back too, but I think his agent's really playing hardball. All right, so this was our first episode of 2024, right? So I just wanted to hit all of our listeners with what to expect from domestic draft this year. Dan, why don't you kick it
Yeah.
off?
Yeah, so we're gonna kind of keep doing the same. We'll start each episode, with a beer from each of our respective cities or suburbs or like the land in which we live. So it's San Diego County for me, Chicagoland for Evan. But we're gonna start looking at a variety and a diversity of guests coming on the show. So we're gonna keep with trying to have a guest for each episode, but we're going to be branching out and not solely focusing on sports. We're going to be doing some of the things that we're passionate about, looking at people in those industries, which is some musicians, comedians, more breweries. We're looking at other podcasts as well that we listen to. So if you're listening and you know somebody who might want to be on the show or you have an idea of who you think would fit well with what we do, go ahead and hit us on our socials and tag them, and we'll see if we can make it happen.
Some of my favorite episodes have been, photographers or musicians or, just things that aren't necessarily in the realm of sports that have just been really, really great to share beer and just kind of hang out with somebody and get to know them and their career and their
Yeah.
story. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a great year.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks again for joining us today for Dan Slowick. I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.
Cheers.